Hey everybody, this is the show where we are incredibly inspired by the love and change that local nonprofits bring to their communities. And we believe that speakers and nonprofit professionals deserve the chance to share their stories, collaborate, and network with their communities and sector. So without further ado, you're listening to Nonprofit Connect, a podcast by Rogue Creatives hosted by me, Matt Barnes. Let's go. Another week, another podcast. We're back. Welcome to Nonprofit Connect. I'm Matt Barnes.
And I'm Tiffany Pope.
And we are your guides on this journey into non-profiteering. That's not right? Non-profiteering.
Oh, gosh.
Non-profitism.
I don't know.
None of these things are correct.
No.
I like non-profiteering. I think people in nonprofit should be called non-profiteers.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
I like it, right?
Yeah. It has a ring to it.
It does. Non-profiteers.
Non-profiteers.
Although now I'm getting like Mickey Mouse Club vibes. Yeah. With the Mouseketeers.
Yeah. Mouseketeers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse Club.
I'm thinking of the Three Musketeers now.
Oh, no.
It's not.
Oh, no.
No, we need to
She
stop.
doesn't know what the Mickey Mouse Club is.
Oh, my gosh. Relax.
You don't know what the Mickey Mouse Club is?
Like Mickey Mouse?
But the Mickey Mouse Club.
What's the club? The exclusive people of Mickey Mouse?
Oh, my gosh. You guys. I'm working with a child. First of all, just one of the first TV shows ever.
Okay.
And
like to ever exist?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's in the early days of TV. It wasn't the first, but it was in that first sort of batch. It was black and white. And it was one of Disney's first TV shows. And it was like a bunch of kids. They were the Mickey Mouse Club. And it was the same kids every week. And they would do songs and different things. And then the new Mickey Mouse Club happened in the 90s. And that is where we got Britney Spears. That's where we got Justin Timberlake. That's where we got JC Chazé, I believe. That's where we got Ryan Gosling. That's where we got Carrie Russell, Christina Aguilera.
Oh my gosh.
They were all Mouseketeers in the new Mickey Mouse Club.
Okay.
On Disney Channel.
I had no clue.
That's where they all came from.
That's crazy.
That's how they all met.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy how life works.
This is such an educational podcast for you.
It really is.
Working for me is an educational experience for you. Yes.
It really is. I learned so much.
Oh, yes. And I get depressed every time I realize you don't know anything. Anyway, let's get on to our guest today. I'm really excited about this one because we heard from his wife a few weeks ago, Miriam Dix, and he's here today, Anthony Dix Jr. He is a pastor. He is an author. He is a speaker. He is a leadership consultant.
Wow.
And he works with Miriam with their organization, which I'm blanking on the name of, even though it's got to be right here. There it is, 180 Management Group. See, I've got all these things in my head. I can't keep it all straight.
Just too much.
But dude, this guy, he and I bonded. Okay. He made fun of me a little bit for my lack of sports knowledge, which you do all the time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Because I made a football reference and I said, I had to ask a question when I was watching a football game one time and he was like, you didn't know that? And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, he was dying. So
he was calling you a nerd.
We also bonded on a lot of other things. And then it's just really cool to, after talking with his wife, Miriam, to talk with him and kind of get the other half because they work together and see how they have combined their strengths to do something really great.
Wow.
In consulting with nonprofits and helping them grow and figure out how to be better at what they do. So Anthony's awesome.
So cool.
I feel like he's like one of my new best friends.
Aww.
I know, right? But
you don't really have a lot of best friends, so that's good.
Well, that is rude. That is insulting and rude, and you're fired. Anyway, everybody say goodbye to Tiffany.
Bye.
No. But no, we'll be back with Anthony right after this and enjoy it because it was a fun one to do.
Guess it's my last time here.
Okay. Bye, Tiff. We'll see you never. Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes is brought to you by Rogue Creatives. Did you know that your brand has a personality all of its own? Well, it does. Or it should. But maybe it doesn't. How do you know if it does? Here's what you do. Ask yourself, does the way you describe your organization match the way you describe your branding? Because it really needs to. Why? Because people don't connect with organizations. They just don't. They don't feel connected to them. They feel connected to characters. They feel connected to personality. So it's super important that your brand has a personality that connects with the right people to bring them into your story. And that's what Rogue Creatives is all about. We've developed our very own process called the Strategic Storytelling Framework to define your brand personality and create a brand foundation that will make sure your organization has that main character energy that connects with others and pulls them right into your story. And by the way, it works. And we got the receipts. Our nonprofit clients have seen incredible increases in giving that have allowed them to help even more people and make the world a better place. Get started today by visiting roguecreatives.com/NPC. That's NPC for Nonprofit Connect. You can schedule a free brand consultation and take our free online brand character quiz. And we all know that everybody loves a good online quiz, especially when it's free. So get over there and do that because why not? Why wouldn't you? You love it. It's going to be fun. That's roguecreatives.com/NPC to begin defining your brand character today. There's no commitment or risk for you at all. And honestly, we just can't wait to meet you. We kind of think we could be good friends. I think we could hang out. You could buy us lunch. We can help you with your branding and talk about the shows we're binging or whatever. It'd be nice. Rogue Creatives. Seriously, creative storytelling. All right, on with the show. I'm here with Anthony Dix. And Anthony, thank you so much for joining me.
Man, Matt, it's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, man. And like I was mentioning before we started recording, your wife was here about a month ago, I guess, a month and a half ago, maybe. And she set the bar pretty high. So
Yeah.
good luck.
Well, thank you, man. I'm going to need all the help I can get. Yeah, I have grown. We've been married for 21, going on 22 years.
Ooh,
And
nice.
I have grown used to my name. My real name is not Anthony. My real name is what I'm quite comfortable being introduced as, and that is Miriam's husband.
Yeah.
just call me Miriam's husband. I still
All
will
right.
answer.
Well, Miriam's husband, I'm so glad you're here. We always start off with a few random questions. So we have a list of many, many random questions growing all the time. And we have a randomizer that chooses 3. Are you ready for that?
Let's do it.
Okay. Question number 1. What is the best holiday you've ever had?
Oh, man, that's a good one. My wife has a tendency to surprise me. I can never surprise her. She always surprises me. So I've been surprised on several occasions. Christmas, I've got a surprise twice. Like one year, she got me a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
'Cause I've been asking about it. And then last year, she bought me the John Maxwell team certification so I could be certified as a JMT. So that was good. But there was one year, and I know this might seem small to some people, but there was this bracelet I wanted that I didn't think I was going to get ever. And she surprised me with it. And it's not the bracelet that I have on now. It's another bracelet that I used to wear when I'm wearing something that's a little lighter colored. Man, that was the best Father's Day gift ever.
Nice.
Ever.
She knows you.
Yeah, she knows me very well. And
That's good.
She surprised me. I didn't think I was going to get anything. You know how Father's Day can be.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
lucked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What is the TV show that takes you to your happy place?
Lately, and I don't want to give a shout out to any TV show. I'm not an affiliate, but Reacher,
Oh, I haven't seen Reacher.
that TV show has been doing it for me lately.
Nice. Okay. I got to check that out.
Yeah, so the lead in the series is not like Tom Cruise, but it's a wonderful, wonderful ride, man. It's a wonderful ride. He's a big, big dude. So him with his muscle mass compared to, intellectual prowess and sophistication of Tom Cruise playing that in a movie for 2 movies, it doesn't take away from the series at all. And I hadn't read the book that's associated with it though. So man, Reacher does it. It's detective. It's like Batman without the mask and the riches. But it's really, really good. So I like Reacher.
Is that Alan Richardson? Is that his name?
Yes, that's Alan Richardson. Yes.
Yeah. I've seen him in a few other things. He's a big dude.
Right. Like he is humongous. There's one line, I think, where somebody walked past him and I couldn't tell if it was improv or somebody wrote that into the script, but they looked at him and and asked him, "Why are you so big?"
Nice.
Well, why do you have to be that big? So that takes me to my happy place.
Nice. All right. Last question. Another holiday one. If you could get rid of one festive holiday, which is your least favorite? What would it be?
My least favorite holiday is just Valentine's Day. No slight to Miriam, because I love Miriam.
Not about the love.
Right. We have a wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
And so the wedding anniversary is no competition. Like Valentine's Day is no competition for a wedding anniversary. So I think once you get married, like Valentine's Day is like,
Yeah. I agree. I absolutely agree. And there's a weird pressure on Valentine's Day that just feels, I don't know.
it's awkward. Now I hope I hadn't lost any of your listeners or viewers talking about how a brutal TV show like Jack Reacher takes me to a happy place, or how I don't like Valentine's Day. So I hope they stick around to listen to some other stuff that I have to say.
I think you're good. I think you're good. So my wife and I, not to get too far off topic, but we had 2 weddings So we have 2 anniversaries, and then there's the like, which one's our real one? Do we celebrate them both? So
That's amazing.
3 weeks later, we just took our wedding party to Vegas and did a secret getaway and didn't tell anybody. And then 3 months later, we had a big wedding. And right before we walked down the aisle, we played the video from the first wedding.
Okay.
And everybody's like,
Okay.
what?
So y'all were married? It's like getting rebaptized? It's like,
Yeah, exactly. We just got to make sure. You know,
Right.
got to make sure.
Just in case it didn't take the first time.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Anthony, I'm glad you're here. Looking over your resume, I can't believe how much of a slacker you are. You've done so little. I mean, just a speaker and leadership consultant with 180 Management Group. You've written a book, you're a senior pastor, your executive leadership podcast you were on recently. Like, I mean, your list just goes on and on. So my question is, why are you so lazy, I guess?
Because, man, laziness is where it's at. It's just so refreshing to be a slacker, man.
Do you have ADD like I do?
I was asked a few weeks ago, it was probably in a conversation about some of my pursuits and stuff like that, and how it could seem like you're doing a lot when it's really, to me, it's not a lot. It's not that I have my hands in a lot of things. It's just that what my hand is in deeply. So instead of expanding to other subjects, because I'm not an accountant and a dentist and a philanthropist and a phlebotomist, no, I'm in the leadership, and I just get so deep into those things that my hand gets to spread in other areas. And so I just love leaders and I love leadership. So I just get engulfed in it.
I am right there with you. I'm curious because I did talk to Miriam because she seems a little bit more diverse in her background, medical background or medical management or something like that. And now getting into leadership and pastoral and all these things. Is that a good balancing for you guys?
Yeah, it is a great balance because I wish Miriam was here. And I know we're talking a lot about Miriam, so you should go hear her podcast because I'm pretty sure it's amazing. But we are 2 sides of the same coin. She is an operational genius. I have not seen a mind for operations like hers. She just gets it. Miriam is to operations what Neo is to the Matrix. She looks at operations of a business and she just sees the code. I may have something similar to that when it comes to leadership. And often the way we work in tandem with each other is oftentimes leaders don't understand how to operationalize vision or the operational implications of their vision. So as we've led together in our organization, she's helped me to understand the operational implications of a vision that I might cast. And on the other side, she's learned the language of vision and how to take it and operationalize it, which oftentimes gets lost in translation. So we are a match. That's what we call it, matchmaking, matching your vision with your operations and vice versa. And so the 2 of us work in tandem in that way. And it's been an extremely wonderful ride and journey to learn how I sound to people who may follow me. Like, you casted this vision, but what are they going to do with that? What does it look like from A to B to C to D? And to see that process work out right, make it practical, and then reverse engineer how you cast vision, taking those things into account of how you're being heard, just makes you a better leader.
Absolutely. My background's also organizational leadership. And one of the things I talk about a lot is you got to find that balance. You can't be one or the other. You've got to find them. And whether it's a spouse, which my wife provides that kind of balance as well, though she's busy with our 5 children. So she's got her hands full. But we did used to work together. And after she stopped working here, making sure that I had good people around me that would bring that balance, because without it, I could be all philosophy and all like training up the best people and great, but we're not getting anything done and we're losing money and we're, we're a mess. So you got to have that balance. You talk about engineering your leadership. That is something that I've seen in the things I've been reading about you. You guys do a lot of consulting. I mean, that's mostly what your organization does, right?
That's right.
So what does that look like when you come into an organization, especially let's talk specifically nonprofits, because that's what the podcast is about. What are you looking for and how do you approach that?
Leaders, in my opinion, don't grow by accident. They must be engineered. And what I mean by that, engineering is about the intentional building of certain mechanisms, systems, the way things works and flows, and seeing how those things interact with each other to lead to an optimized outcome, an optimized result. And those things take intentionality. And in my experience, too often people who have assumed leadership responsibility in a nonprofit organization assume that responsibility, and that with that responsibility comes the expectation that they are intentional about how they reach outcomes, but it does not come with a commensurate or requisite expectation that they exercise that same intentionality about how they develop as leaders. So leaders are intentional about developing their organizations, but not as intentional about developing their leadership. And I think that is to an organization's demise. And so we take those opportunities as a management consulting firm to assess an organization's culture, to really investigate ways in which we can engineer better outcomes, to engineer transformation. And it doesn't happen by happenstance or serendipitously. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens through the intentional moving forward with intentional systems, being systematic so that the cultural shift and change is systemic. So that's really what I mean by engineering your leadership, to think about your organization like a mechanical engineer thought about your car, like a civil engineer thought about how the water flows in your neighborhood to keep it from flooding. That kind of intentionality is also needed when it comes to professional and personal development.
Absolutely. The biggest challenge I see in that area, and I'd love to hear your perspective, is if someone's coming to you for this, or at least they're already open to it. And that's the key, right? It's the same thing with whether you want to get better as a person, you can go to therapy, whatever it is that you need to do to grow, invest in yourself, that kind of thing. Oftentimes, I say all the time, the people who need therapy the most will never go because they're never going to admit they need therapy. They don't want to change. They don't want to grow. So for those organizations, those people, you've kind of got a little bit of a leg up when you go in that they've already called you. They're asking for your opinion. I know that doesn't make it easy all the time. Sometimes they still don't want to hear what you have to say deep down. There's the pain. I don't want to change. Change is the hardest. But do you find yourself ever working with people who are very resistant to that change? And how do you approach that?
Yeah, there have been times where we have had engagements that involve people who were more resistant to change than others. In many instances, from what I understand, change registers in the brain as pain. So people's resistance to change is normative. The degree of that resistance can be different from person to person. So when we are working with clients who call us in to serve, we know that there's going to be a certain amount of pain that registers in their brain, and that the person who initiated this engagement is either a little more pain tolerant or a little more in pain and wants it to change relatively quickly. But that's not the case for everybody. And so those things, when you're working with people who have differing levels of resistance to change, you got to be patient and you got to prioritize. What can we change? You got to know, okay, what can we change? What are we going to have to table until another day? Because change, in order for it to be effective, it's got to be long lasting and people have to be bought into it. We do not consider ourselves to be miracle workers, even though in some instances, in some engagements, miracles do happen, but we don't take credit for that. So when it comes to those types of opportunities, empathy is a big deal. If you had to go through these types of processes to change your organization and it's your baby, you might feel the same way. And so keeping those things in mind, being empathetic, being patient, but also being clear as to what you can and cannot change helps to navigate those spaces in times well, in my opinion. That's what I've seen work.
Yeah. Are most of your clients, are they more startups or organizations that have been around for a while?
Organizations that have been around for a while.
That's what I assumed. Yeah. When I was doing my organizational leadership degree, the first class I took was called Leader as an Agent of Change, which apparently is supposed to be the last class you take. But somehow I ended up in there first. They told us, they're like, you're going to graduate with this. If this is the area you go into, most of the people that are going to hire you, they're hiring you to manage change. They're realizing something's got to change and they don't know how to do it, or they don't want to be the ones to pull the trigger because they're going to get blamed. So they bring in a consultant so they can point the finger. But we spent a lot of time sort of looking through case studies and different things to kind of develop our own approach to managing change. And I loved what our professor did because the first night of class, he had us write 2 pages or so on what our thoughts were and then revise that as we went through the semester, and then really like a final revision for our final paper, which ended up being about 20 pages. But, all your thoughts and how much it evolved, and really where I landed, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, was your best bet is when you're starting an organization to build change into the DNA of it. And what so many people do is they make their core about the what or the where or the how and not the why. And if you make about the why, then when all those other details change, you're okay because your core stays the same and you're always changing a little bit and adapting. But it's when it's like, this is what we do and how we do it. And then 20 years goes by and you're like, oh, we are out of, then moving that is very painful. Like pulling up that flag and going, oh, we got to move that. That's a painful thing. Instead of if it's your why, then every day you're going like, oh, where are we going today? I'm driven by the purpose of it because I've spent a lot more time on the startup side of things, working with startups, nonprofits, smaller nonprofits. I mean, definitely done some managing change in larger ones, and it's a pain. How do you approach that with an organization that is so, this is the way it's been done. This is the way we've always done it. And they know they need to change, but they're resistant to that change. Where do you start?
One, you start by assessing the culture as it stands at the time, because a change strategy is always going to lose to the existing culture of an organization. So if you don't assess the culture of an organization, it's going to be difficult to move the needle with regards to transforming that organization or changing any aspect of that organization. And so you start there and you want to do that in a way that is objective, that's not subjective. And this is one of the challenges, even in doing it objectively, is people will develop a subjective theory, a subjective approach or perspective, even on objective metrics. So if you give them the statistics, if you give them the metrics that lead you to identify areas where change needs to happen, that either confirm or challenge some of their existing ideas about what needs to change and where, people can still have subjective approach to it. But it still gives you a place from which you have common ground to say, we've taken an assessment of your organization as a whole, given different people's responsibilities to analyze these particular areas, and this is what the data says. Then after that, all you can do is suggest. Because to me, often what we take for granted about organizations is we think that organizations are machines when they're not. Organizations are collections of human beings, and human beings have behaviors. So when you're talking about change, you're really talking about changing minds and changing behaviors. And if you're talking about adults, that's not going to happen quickly or easily. So if you have an evolutionary approach to change, as you've alluded to, getting change into the organization when it started up is really helping the organization embrace that organizations like humans evolve over time. And that's something that we do quite naturally. It's just that when organizations get bigger because of success, they want to keep things as they are, which builds in cultural inertia. That's when you almost got to break something to make something. In order for us to make change, it feels like we got to break all of this other stuff. But if you take the approach and remind people that this is an opportunity for your organization to evolve, and evolution is natural and it is necessary to sustain the flourishing and thriving of an organization. So those attitudes lead to certain actions and tactics that can be contagious, especially when you're coming in as a consultant. You know that you are the fall guy. You know that sometimes people bring you in because they're looking for you to say things that they've been saying that they just know that their voice is not being heard. That's one approach. Or they're just looking for someone else who has a new nose, who may smell trash that everybody else has gotten used to, and hopefully has the kind of credibility to move the organization forward so that they can at least get credit for, I brought in this consultant and they helped to change our organization. But in either case, that attitude of let's see how we can help this organization evolve in a transformative way gives you the language, the mindset, and the disposition to help move the organization forward, because there is going to be some requisite resistance to change. You can't shake it. You just can't.
It sounds like the balance of you and Miriam is perfect for this, because what you're saying is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but she can kind of go in and see the objective structural issues and the code. You can assess sort of the culture so that you can take that and meet them where they're at and figure out how do we walk them down this path without saying, hey, we're over here, come to us. We're going to help walk you to where you need to go using the facts that we have, the objective fact. That outside perspective too is, I tell our clients all the time, in many ways, we're very often leading people through change on specifically from a storytelling branding front, not so much from the organizational structural side of things, though. we do sometimes get sucked into some of that as well. But I tell them all the time, I'm like, we can do a lot of things, but honestly, the best thing we have is an outside perspective. That's the best thing we have to offer you, because anytime my background's leadership, I do all this, I study all this stuff, I know everything you're talking about, I'm just like, yes. But how often do I find myself ignoring the same advice that I'm giving to somebody else because I'm in the middle of it and I'm not seeing? And so it's actually in some ways been better since my wife's been a little bit more removed, because she can see what's going on and go like, wait a minute, what's going on over there? Like just checking in every once in a while and, hey, what's going on at work? And I'm telling her and she's like, well, it seems like you're missing this thing. Oh man, I am. You're right. Like, to have that sort of removed perspective. But it sounds like you guys have a good, well-rounded approach to be able to come in and guide people through that process. It is very painful.
She can see, as you said, the structure and how the structure influences culture. And I can see how culture influences structure. And so the interplay between both of our perspectives is extremely helpful for the organizations that we have had the opportunity to serve as consultants and internally to some of the organizations that we have built. And that outside perspective is so necessary. I think it was Donald Miller in one of his workshops that I attended that were talking about sometimes people who are involved in marketing, messaging, and I think even in operations, they don't know that their marketing messages aren't getting their point across because they're trying to read the label of the soda bottle from inside the bottle. They're trying to read things from the inside. And so having that close perspective is almost like a surgeon trying to operate on somebody that's their sibling or their son or their daughter. It's like, I'm too close to this to be able to operate efficiently. And sometimes that distance helps to create enough space to get a different perspective. Say, oh, so that's what that really looks like. That's what that really sounds like. And so that outside perspective is key. It is key.
Absolutely. I'm not a big sports guy, but I remember one year I was watching the Super Bowl with my family and whatnot. And, the coaches always have their headphones on with their little microphone. I'm like, who are they talking to? And I don't know if this is true. This is what somebody told me. They're like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
You didn't know that they had people in the skybox looking at this?
That's what I'm saying. So they're like, yeah, there's people up top that have the big picture view. They can see where all the players are because the coach is down there. They can't see everything. They don't have the perspective. You need that outside perspective. And I thought, oh, good leadership metaphor or whatever. And didn't quite because sports is whatever. I don't know what's going on the field. When's the next commercial? But
so you literally were watching the Super Bowl for the commercials.
Yes.
That's good.
I'm that guy.
Oh, that's good.
So, but it stuck with me as like, you got to have that voice in your ear that's got a different perspective, because all of us, any of us, the best of us can get trapped in our own mind traps, the way that we think, the way that we've been trained, or just our situation, and I can't tell you how many times we get new clients and they go, this thing is the most important thing that people want to hear about us. And we're going, nobody cares about that. From an outside perspective, nobody cares. This other thing over here that you're not even talking about, that's really interesting. And usually that's when they go, oh, that's just who we are. And I'm like, exactly. That's what makes you different, who you are, and bringing that into the story and bringing that character forward. But I think even with the structural things and bringing that into a story narrative of the development of an organization, and presenting that as a positive of evolution. And this could be a moment. I did this with one nonprofit I was consulting with a few years ago, and they had been around for a while and big changes they needed to make. And I got them all together and had them sort of group tell the story of the organization and how they had gotten to there and what were the big turning points where things changed. And I said, we're at another one now. This is one you're going to be in a couple of years. You tell the story, you're going to look back and go, and it got them excited about the idea of, okay, we're going to make some changes. It still was tough in some areas, but at least it helped change that mindset of we're growing, this is positive, this is not negative.
Right. One of the powerful things about what you just suggested is about the power of story. So even when it comes to consulting from an operations or leadership perspective, understanding that every structure or process in an organization, there's a story connected to that. That there's a reason why what we call this, there's a reason why we put this before we put that, and before we do this, before we do the other. And so when you're assessing a culture, when you're assessing the necessity for change, it's an opportunity for you to learn those stories, because stories create meaning and understanding. The second thing that's powerful about stories, that not only do those structures have stories, those stories give you insight as to the sacred cows you may be touching. Because my granddaddy put that in his room. That's the reason why it's got to be here for such and such. And he founded the company. So that's sacred. So those stories help you understand what processes, people, or principles are sacred. But then, as you also alluded to, consulting gives you an opportunity to make stories as well. It is hard convincing sometimes organizations that the next chapter of their story could be much better than the last chapters of their story. And that's where you get that resistance to change, where people think the way we were is better than the way you're suggesting we can be.
Well, people romanticize the past.
Exactly. Because they're just more comfortable with it.
I don't know if you follow the news at all, but the good old days, there's a lot of romanticizing of things because people are comfortable with it. So I'm getting probably off topic, but I saw a post on Facebook recently, like when I was a kid, we knew to come home when the streetlights turned on and we rode in the back of the pickup truck and we did this and those were the good old days. And why aren't, and I'm like, well, probably because we learned that it's not always safe for kids to just be out on their own until the streetlights come on. Probably because kids were getting tossed out of the back of pickups trucks. And you know what I mean? Like we learned and we grew.
Have you ever heard it? So you liked it when we didn't have seatbelts.
Yeah, sure. It was fun for you and you survived. Yay. But also, like that doesn't mean it was better, but people get so comfortable with what they grew up with, what they know, what they're surrounded by, that I think we can all easily romanticize a chapter. I had a boss one time who said, you guys, these are the good old days. And I thought, oh, don't say that. Because you're saying anything that comes after this is going to suck. Like it's not going to live up to it. And you know what? It was like this premonition. Everything fell apart within a couple of years after that because it was like somebody left and then this, and it was like, oh, the good old days are gone now. It's not the way it was. And that boss constantly was looking back to, yeah, man, remember that, remember. And I'm like, but the good old days could still be coming if we work for it, if we accept that that's possible. It doesn't have to be an either or. That was a good time, but also it can be better.
Because in a story, the climax isn't the end. The climax of the story sets up the resolution and peace side of the story. The climax of the story helps to set up the happily ever after. And leaders, particularly, bear a lot of responsibility in regards to creating inspiration, motivation, and hope in an organization so that they understand that the glory days are not what back there, that we are still yet evolving into more glorious days. But we leaders can't do that being Pollyanna. You can't do that just selling false dreams or pipe dreams. Still have to be realistic because economic disruption comes. Pandemics, they come, but you can still create hope even in those contexts to help people, to galvanize them, create the synergy to lead to transformational change and to continue to move the needle forward so you can get the mission done. Because if the mission isn't complete yet, as you said, if the why is still our raison d'etre, then we still got meaningful work to do. We're not finished yet. And hope helps people finish. When people are hopeless, they just already feel like they're done or they don't want to keep going on. But hope helps people finish.
I love this. I literally could talk to you about this all day and probably tomorrow as well. So I might have to have you back sometime, but
man.
Yeah.
We could talk football.
Yeah, exactly. You can teach me. You can teach me about what they're talking about in those headphones. I'd seen it for so long, and I'm like, who are they talking to? The players don't have mics in their ears. What's going on? Maybe they do.
They have sound in their helmets. Yes.
They do?
That's how they call the play-ins. Yep.
Man, see, I don't know anything.
This is amazing. We could talk more offline about this stuff. Now, I'm not an expert.
Well, you don't have to be. You could be a novice and still know more than I do about that. So I'm calling you every time I watch a game. What's happening? Well, thank you so much. We do have a few closing questions that I would love to ask.
Are these more random questions? Do I need to brace myself?
They're a little more on topic. Okay. Is there somebody that you would love to meet or that you look up to or inspires you in the world of nonprofits? Who would that be?
Man, nonprofits is so expansive.
I know, it really is.
Naturally, my mind goes to leaders and government.
We'll go there anyway. So who there?
Dead or alive?
Sure.
Abraham Lincoln. I would love to just talk to Abe Lincoln because he navigated not only a pivotal time in history. Listen, how did you get all of that done and continue to maintain the kind of integrity that he had to move what he needed to move forward to preserve the Union? That time in history, pivotal, but his leadership I'm enamored by that guy. So I would love to sit down and talk to Abraham Lincoln.
All right, who's the alive one?
I'd like to talk to Barack Hussein Obama.
Of course. I would too. Who wouldn't? Well, I know a lot of people who wouldn't.
You know what, though? I would rather talk to Michelle. Right.
You get the real perspective.
She was a lawyer. Just to juxtapose her career prowess with Hillary Clinton's career prowess and how they took different approaches to being the first lady. I would just have a ton of questions. I just want to know more. I would get into kind of stuff, but I'd just like to know more.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. What aspect of your job brings you the most joy?
Coaching and inspiring leaders. That brings me the most joy. Leaders, especially in the nonprofit space, don't get enough good press, number one. They don't get enough encouragement, number two. And they inspire so many that they run out of breath inspiring others. To inspire is to breathe into. And so breathing into nonprofit leaders, because I truly believe in the work that nonprofit leaders do. They don't, again, get enough credit for what it is that they do and the kind of heart and sacrifice that they make in order to attempt to make this world and people's lives better. They are the unsung heroes of this country. And that's what makes me come alive the most, to really see them inhale and exhale again because they felt inspired, encouraged, or empowered by something that I've had the opportunity to share, whether in consultation, coaching, or speaking.
I love it. I'm glad you said that. That's so much of why we're doing this podcast, why we do our meetups. We love the nonprofits we work with, and they often feel very isolated and alone in what they're doing because they don't get that recognition or that appreciation. And they're people who have dedicated their lives to something that they're probably not getting paid too much to do and getting the recognition as much for. And when they come together and realize, oh, there's a lot of us and we're all in the same boat and we can learn from each other and support each other, it's been really beautiful. And to hear from people like you to give that perspective too, that encouragement is so needed, so important, so great.
It's real, man. It's therapeutic just to be a part of those types of opportunities because they give so much and receive so little. The more and more we could give to them would be amazing.
That's awesome. All right, Anthony, where can people find you?
They can find me online at linkedin.com/AA Dixon Jr. You can find me on Instagram. You definitely can visit 180 Management Group's website as 180managementgroup.com. This podcast will be posted there once it's published and all the rest of that stuff. So yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm not too hard to find.
Perfect. Awesome. Anthony, thank you so much for this. I love that I got to get the full picture of what you guys do with your wife and get this so perfect. It's so great. So definitely listeners, go check out 180managementgroup.com and Anthony and Miriam and all the amazing work that they're doing to support organizations like you. So thank you, Anthony. And we'll hopefully talk again soon. You can teach me more about football.
Outstanding. If you tell me where you got those glasses, I'll teach you anything about football for free.
All right. Stay on afterwards and I'll tell you. All right. See ya. Well, there you have it. This episode of Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes, brought to you by Rogue Creatives, is over. It's done. Finished. What are you going to do with the rest of your day? You going to take the dog for a walk, maybe have some dinner? Before you do any of those things, could you do us a massive favor and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Music or Spotify or wherever else you listen to us? Obviously, you don't have to, but, it'd be very, very appreciated. Oh, and if you want to hear more from us, visit our website at npconnect.roguecreatives.com. That's npconnect, like Nonprofit Connect, .roguecreatives.com. We'll see you soon. Nonprofit Connect with Matt Barnes is hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes, with an assist by my chaos coordinator, Tiffany Pope. Production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency, along with Belinda Carter-Thompson and the team here at Rogue Creatives. Production lead is Luke Audi at Fame. Writing is by Sam Hollis at Fame and Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos from Rogue Creatives. Nemanja Koljaja of Fame is our audio editor, and Arslan Yakub from Fame is our video editor. Creative direction is by Corey Hill of Rogue. Our artwork is designed by Hopo Kelly and Joshua Marino at Rogue, and Ian Salas of Fame. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Luke Audi of Fame does our booking and our guest relations. Huge thanks to our amazing guest for joining us for this episode, and to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good review. Preferably, 5 stars with lots of words saying how amazing we are on whatever platform you're listening on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. For more information about Nonprofit Connect or to join us at a live event here in Orange County, California, visit our website, npconnect.roguecreatives.com. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.